Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
Super exciting topic for me today. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. We're talking about how to rewire your brain for positive thinking.
Yeah, this is a big one. I think people are going to come away with some really good ideas, maybe some things they haven't thought of before, and also I think some of it's going to be common sense, and we try to always bring it down to that level, because I think bringing it down to the common sense level, you have a better chance of actually doing it. If it's just kind of a thought and yeah, that sounds good, and you get motivated, but there's not anything of substance, that can be difficult for people.
Yeah, and I really like the way we laid this episode out, because like always we have our three steps, but this,
Yeah.
the first we have like a basic one, and then we have the third one that's like really full of stuff. So I think there's a lot of value pack in this episode for people, because I had coffee with somebody yesterday, and we were talking about this, but your brain just doesn't come with instructions. This is like,
Right.
I think one of the things, that's almost criminal in evolution is that we're given this like supercomputer of a brain and just, default access to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
good luck, here you go, have
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
what you can do with it. And
Yeah.
it's almost pre-programmed to work against us in a lot of cases. So rewiring your brain for positive thinking will do so much, to kind of take you to that next level, that I think it's that important.
Well, I mean, it's wired for your survival. That's what it's wired for. So you naturally are looking for threats and things that are going to harm you. The challenge now in the modern world, and especially if you live in a country that has a lot of luxuries like we do, that threat isn't common too often. Not that there aren't sometimes when you're in certain places, but for the most part, you're just going to the store, you're going here, going there. You don't really have to worry about it. But what you do have to stand guard on is not physical threats as much as the mental ones, and emotional, and things that can throw your day off. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, and then your whole day is shot. I mean, that to me is a common thing, but if you think about it, it's kind of ridiculous that little thing that set you off for the whole day, when there's a lot of other people in the world that have it far worse with far more things. So it and that's not to discount the problems we have in our life, because they're certainly real, but I think this can help all of us and remind us doing the podcast, how to
Yeah.
be more positive, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, positivity, and positive thinking, I love it because it's almost divisive, right? Like some people are like, oh, it's a waste of time. Like,
Yeah.
positive thinking doesn't really create results. And then other people, like,
Right.
myself included, really feel that being a positive person and having that positive mindset, changes your vibrations so that you are really like, you're more effective with other
Yeah.
people, right? You're more influential with other people. And, another thing that I think being positive does, especially if you're in sales, is, it's that old adage of, if you have three circles in a triangle, you're going to look at the circles once each, and you're going to look at the triangle three times because it's different and it stands out.
Yeah.
And in a world where there's so many people who are just kind of ho-hum through their day,
Yeah.
if you can be somebody positive and enthusiastic, you're going to stand out more and be somebody people want to spend time with.
Well, if you run a business, one of the least expensive things you can do, especially at a hard cost, is training your staff to be positive and upbeat and welcoming. And there's really not any hard cost to that, unless you go to a seminar to teach them. But if you were teaching and leading by example yourself as the leader and the owner, it's free.
Hmm.
The only thing it costs is time. Time and reminders. I mean, that's all it is. But what is the difference in a business that's positive? You go in there, you have a positive experience versus a negative one. I mean,
Yeah.
that changes from having a business that you have repeat customers to a business that you have to constantly look for new customers because you made the old customers mad. And
Yeah.
you might have a product that's superior, but because of the attitude and the feel of the business, it's not going well. That's a shame.
And to the people out there who are already positive thinkers, I think these tips have a little bit of a different spin, just kind of keep you going in the right direction.
Yeah,
And to the people out there who have a lot of those negative thoughts, whether it's, random ones that pop in your head throughout the day, or even the consistent ones that, hit you every morning when you're kind of,
right.
waking up, I think this podcast will really help you make progress in that. So let's get into our three
Okay.
steps, because I think they're easy, they're actionable, I think people can do
Yep.
today. So number one, which is my absolute favorite, is gratitude journaling.
Yeah.
And we talk about gratitude on the podcast all the time, but I think the thing that really sticks with me is that you can't be grateful and fearful at the same
Right.
time, right? The
Yep.
brain can't hold two emotions. So let's
Yeah.
talk about a little bit, what gratitude journaling is.
Well, the action of journaling is really where I feel the magic happens. It's a lot like your goals. If you think about what you want and you visualize it, you're way ahead of the game, right? If you do that and then also you write it down, you put pen to paper, and I prefer when I'm doing my goals to actually physically write them down on a piece of paper versus type them out. I think you're more engaged. Your body and your mind is more engaged when you're actually physically writing them down. Now, not that you can't type them, and that can be helpful too, because it's certainly more helpful than not doing it at all. But I think the best, in my opinion, is the actual physically writing. And so, same thing with journaling. I think that should also be something where you're not typing in your phone with your thumbs, but you're actually having a journal at your bedside with a pen or a pencil, and you're writing down your thoughts. And I know this is big with you. So, what are some things that you think about or questions that you go through when you do your journal?
I mean, I really think that, we get more of what we put our attention to. And I think, going back
Yeah,
to what you said about handwriting, I think what, taking that time to actually sit down and write things sends yourself a message, even if you don't know it on a conscious level, that
yep,
this is important, right? Like it's important enough
right,
for me to write down, think about writing a thank you note to somebody, right? Like if it's important, you write down and you take the
right,
time.
right.
So your brain has that worked in. So I think that's a big part of it. But I think, gratitude journaling can be as easy as, you know, I'm happy I woke up today. I'm happy I have
Yep,
another
yep.
shot. Because listen, we don't always come from a
Yeah,
great day the day before, right? And
right,
sometimes
right,
it's
yep,
finding, the minimum base of gratitude that you have. And sometimes it's just looking
right,
around you and saying, man, I'm grateful I have these great kids. I'm grateful I have a
yep.
job. I'm grateful
Hmm.
and just taking those three or four things, and memorializing them. And what's really cool, like what I love about journaling gratitude is, when you can later on kind of scroll back a few years into your journals and go, wow, look at the things I was grateful for then
Yeah,
versus the things I'm grateful for now.
right.
I mean, those things they change over time, and hopefully, you become grateful for even better things.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it just reframes your mind for one, and then what happens is it becomes a habit, and so habitual thinking is a thing.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, um, as a child, we're going to adopt our caregivers, whether it's our parent, grandparents, whoever raised us. We are going to adopt how their attitude is in the beginning. And then as you get older, your friends influence you, maybe your parents a little less, or if you're in a different organization, so for me, and I know you being a child when you started the martial arts like me, is yeah, my parents were certainly a big influence in my family. However, martial arts, I feel, was even a bigger influence, especially during my teenage years, because I was around positive people. I was around people that are focused in the right direction, wanting to achieve, improve their body, improve their mind, and that was. I, I don't. Even though I had good parents, I don't know if I would be where I am without the martial arts. And I think you feel the same way because we've talked about it. And so people that don't have that or didn't have that and they're adults, you can still get it. It's just going to take you a little longer. So maybe you've been thinking negatively for the past 20 years. Well, I don't think it's going to take you 20 more years to think positively, but it is going to take you, some time to get it down. And getting in the habit of journaling, physically doing that on a daily basis is a huge step in that direction.
It's interesting you say that because I mean, speaking of, kind of converting, right, as you're older
Yeah,
into positive thinking, because we've trained ourselves, and between the natural negative thinking
right.
and then just the popularity of negative thinking, and the popularity of
Yeah,
Mondays suck, it's
yeah,
hump
yeah,
day,
yeah.
everything, so. I
Uh-huh.
think getting into the second step, which I think is really part of that, is challenging negative thoughts, right? So I mean,
Right,
step one is easy because we're building that database of positive, kind of positive things.
right,
An important part, if this isn't something that's natural to you, is learning how to challenge negative thoughts is the
right.
second step.
Yeah, and so the first part is just kind of is start to pay attention. Start to
Mhm.
pay attention to your thoughts. So as a thought goes through your head, is it positive or negative? What was it that you said to yourself? What did you think? What did you see? Depending on how you do you visualize things? Do you see it in words? Do you hear it in your head? And was that negative or positive? So the first one is just that awareness,
Yeah.
and because oftentimes we're not even aware that we're negative in our head, but we get a feeling, an emotion that starts.
And I think one of the things that I really picked up through martial arts, especially from you when I started teaching, was about the power of questions.
Yeah,
And the ability to ask empowering questions to move yourself where you want to go. And I
right.
think, one of the greatest questions you can ask when you catch yourself having those negative thoughts is just, is this true?
Yeah,
Because I mean, I think one of the easiest things people run into, I mean, do Mondays suck? I don't know.
yeah.
Like, why do I think that?
Right,
What evidence is there to show to say that, because I think they're pretty cool. Mondays are the most positive day of the week.
right,
But I think asking yourself that question, like,
right,
is this even real?
right,
Or am I just kind
right.
of conditioned into it?
Right. Yeah. And those are great questions. And then once you ask yourself those and you get an answer, following up with, is there a more positive way to think about it? Can I
Yeah.
spin it a little different? Most people hate Mondays. Well, is that a reason for you to hate Mondays? Just because it's popular oftentimes. And I think you could almost do a very quick, this is your way to be successful, do the opposite of what the majority of people do.
Yeah.
And that is oftentimes the case with many things. Because think of how many people hate Mondays. They hate their job, they hate this, they hate that. That's no way to live. One of the things that I did when I was deciding what I was going to do for a career is lifestyle was a consideration. I wanted to obviously make enough money to support my family and support my dreams and things that I wanted to have. But lifestyle was a big thing.
Yeah.
I wanted to, do something that made the world better, that helped people and influenced people. And so that's why Mondays, I like Mondays, just
Yeah.
like you like Mondays. You
Mhm.
like what you do, even though you do have some days that aren't, just like we all do. That doesn't mean overall it's not great, and
Yeah.
I think it's again reframing your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean it definitely is. It's really about reframing thought. It's about, questioning what your kind of core beliefs are.
Right.
Working with business owners, this is funny, because a lot of times you meet with business owners and they worry, and as business owners, I think we have the same thing, but you worry year over year, like, well, geez, I hope we make it this year. Which is kind
Yeah.
of a silly question when you've been in business for a few years because you go,
Yeah.
like is this even a risk?
Yeah.
Like if you run a great business and you've grown year over year over year with a couple of exceptions of maybe a year or two when
Right.
things leveled out because that happens naturally.
Sure.
But I think every year business owners have that fresh perspective of, geez, I hope this works out this year. And it's like,
Right.
what's your evidence? Your evidence shows
Yeah.
you,
Right.
that you're going to be great.
Right.
So I think getting good at looking at that evidence is super helpful.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm going up and down,
Right?
but if you are watching the video, my camera's
It looks like
it was doing it every once in a while, and then all of a sudden it was like I'm jumping. I'm like
you're
literally, I'm
it looked like you were
almost
on a
still.
swing. Sorry, everybody. That was a
I'm on a
side note.
swing.
Yeah,
Yeah. If
new
you can't
computers
see
and
this, just visualize my head going up on top of the screen and then back down to the lower part of the screen without without me moving at all. Here it
Like
goes
to think
again.
you're actually the positive thinking in me likes to think you're actually on a swing set recording this podcast because that would be a lot
That
of
would be epic.
epic.
That would be cool being on a swing doing
It
that.
would
I
be
could
so
do that.
cool.
I could do that. All right, moving on to step three,
Yeah.
unless you have more on step two.
No, no, no. But just capping off step
Yeah.
two, and kind of rolling into step three. The thing that really is interesting to me, we just left, the end of a year, and that thing you hear all the time, is, man, I hope next year's better. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think one of those things you can really do is two things. Like number one, I think we should be expecting the next year to be better, not hoping it's better.
Right.
But one of the things we need to look at is what am I gonna do?
Right.
What actions am I gonna take to make it better? And that's really what step three is about, is engaging in those activities
Uh-huh.
that make your thinking better.
Right. Yep. Yep. So you kind of let the cat out of the bag with that. But step three is engage activities that promote positive thinking. So
Yeah.
we listed a few things. I'm sure people can do other things and think about other things, but one of them is mindful meditation. And we've talked about this before. When people think meditation, and I don't know now, but I know I used to think meditation. I think of the Buddhists and their legs are crossed and they're sitting for hours, and yes, that is meditation, but that's not really what we're talking about. Mindful meditation is really taking a moment. It could be 5 minutes, could be 10, could be 15, doesn't have to be long. And it could be you're walking. You could walk in meditation. You don't need to have your eyes closed. You could sit and be quiet. You could take what I like to call a power nap, where you're not really sleeping, but you're laying down, your eyes are closed, and you're just letting your mind wander. I mean, all of that can be good and can be helpful, especially if you take a little midday time to do that. Kind of little break.
So there is, when it comes to meditation, especially as it relates to positive thinking, there is I don't know if it's a social media thing or if it's just something that teenagers do now, and it's bleeding into adulthood, but it's called "We Listen and We Don't Judge."
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard that, but basically it's just like, you say something weird that you do and people don't
Yeah.
judge you. They just say, okay, like we listen.
Yep.
And I think this is something you should do for yourself, right? You should sit down in your meditation and you should kind of ask yourself, what feelings am I having?
Hmm.
Right?
Interesting.
I'm a I'm a pretty positive guy, right? Most of the time.
Yep.
And I have days when I'm down. I have days when I'm
Sure.
depressed. I have days when so being able to sit in your thoughts and recognize that you have feelings, but not judge yourself,
Right.
right? And not think you are, less of an achiever because you get down here and there. I mean, we do, but really, like I sit there and I go, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong with nothing's wrong with you. Like, you're a human
Right.
being and you have
Yeah.
emotions, but I think being able to really mindfully sit and say, okay, it's just that's all it is, right?
Right.
It's an emotion, it's a hiccup. On to the
Right.
next thing. I think that's important.
Yep. So another tip is doing activities you enjoy. And yes, this is important. I think the balance is making sure that you're not doing activities that are going to throw off your schedule, throw off your goals. But if you're scheduling those activities or they're done as a reward for achieving some goals, I think that's appropriate. Although I enjoy what I do is for a living, so there's nothing wrong with that, and that was a conscious choice, like I said earlier. So it work doesn't have to be work, although sometimes it is, and especially when you're younger, sometimes you just need to work. You're not going to be the boss when you first start off necessarily, right? So, but doing things that you enjoy, and if you can do that once a day, a couple
Yeah,
times a day, even for a few minutes, that can definitely set you in a more positive direction.
100%. And I think things you enjoy can be, there are times on the weekends when I crack out my laptop and work
Yeah.
because I like to work. But,
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I think what people do is they mistake activities they enjoy for activities that help them escape.
Right.
Things like, I mean, like if you really ask somebody, do you enjoy scrolling through social media? The answer is probably no, right?
Yeah.
Like it's,
Yeah.
or is
Yeah.
there stuff you enjoy doing better? And I think it's just finding those things that make you happy, that make you positive, that you like to do. I
Right.
mean, martial arts
Right.
is a huge one for me, right? Like I love going to the dojo and teaching, training, or whatever because and I tell my kids the same thing. It's just a different kind of place where like you enjoy being there, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so I think engaging activities you enjoy, but then, going to kind of the next one that we're talking about is, engaging in acts of kindness,
Yeah.
right? And helping
That's a
others.
big one for sure.
I literally heard a really short interview with Tony Robbins this morning where he said like the quickest way to happiness is thinking outside of yourself.
Right.
Like if
Right.
you really want to be happy and positive, one of the quickest and easiest ways you can do it is to get out there and do something nice for someone else, even if it's
Yeah.
something stupid like making breakfast for your kids or coffee for your wife, or
Yeah.
that will make you more positive.
Hmm. Yeah, it does. And it's amazing what it does. And I think it's lasting. I think it's not only the feeling you get, but the feeling that the other person gets, especially if it's random. I mean, hopefully it's not random with your spouse that you're doing nice things, all the time. Hopefully you do that on a regular basis, but it could be strangers. But I think, and that's good. I'm not judging somebody for, I'm going to pay for the next two people behind me in line for coffee. That's fine to do. There's nothing wrong with that. People appreciate that. But what can you do in your own life with the people that you're around a lot? How can you show that whether it's kindness, just being nice, or actually a physical act of doing something for them? I think some people are nicer to strangers than they are to the people that are closest to them. And I think we all do that. The law of familiarity kicks in for all of us, and we have to fight against it sometimes.
Mhm.
And we have to remind ourselves that, hey, listen, the person that's always by me and always is stuck with me, I have to be a little nicer to. I have to be more kind. And if you can say something kinder and still get your point across, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
And that's easier said than done, for sure. But these are all reminders for all of us.
Yep.
We've said this many times. When we're doing the podcast, we're really doing the podcast for us to remind ourselves what we should be doing, and then us doing that. Hopefully, everybody listening gets some benefit from it.
Yeah. I feel like I say this over and over again when I meet with people, but the world is really bereft of personality. Like
Yep.
we live in a world where technology is taking over.
Right.
Every email, 80% of my emails are automate drip campaigns coming to me from people that I don't even know.
Drip campaigns.
What I
Oh
mean? Like
yeah.
literally, like
Yep. Yep.
there's
Yep.
such a lack of just hugs and high fives in the world.
Right.
Speaking of, we're
Hugs and
recording
high
this.
fives.
Yeah, we are recording this on National Hugging Day.
Oh,
So I'll give you one later when I see you.
okay.
Um, but
Can't
I
wait.
do. I think if you're like struggling to find nice things you can do for people, like a hug and a high five just goes a
Yeah.
real long way.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so yeah, just putting a cap on that.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, I think we covered everything that we wanted to cover in this. So let's do a recap. So, step one. So this is how to rewire your brain for positive thinking, and whether you feel you're positive or not, these tips can definitely help. So the first one is gratitude journaling, and this is something that should be done daily. It can be done throughout the day, but certainly at the end of the night. And the tip was make sure you actually have a physical journal and you write with a pen or pencil.
Absolutely. Number two, challenge your negative thoughts. So when you catch yourself having those negative thoughts, ask yourself some questions like, is it true? Is there any evidence supporting it?
Yep.
Is there a better, kind of more balanced way to look at
Right.
the situation?
Right. Yep. And number three is engage in activities that promote positive thinking. And we talked about mindful meditation, being aware, or doing things that you enjoy. And the last one was doing acts of kindness to others, for others.
Absolutely. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. If you know somebody who needs to rewire their brain for positive thinking or who would like our podcast, please pass it along and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.